Today we have with us Geoff Schumann, esteemed DJ, comedian, actor, writer, director, producer, you name it. He has amazing talent and he used to share that with us quite a bit back in the 80s and 90s. It's been a little bit quiet recently, so it's lovely to see him and to actually hear from him today. And
Dawn, you missed out one thing. I am currently fighting and suing for defamation. There's a guy, he's an actor, you may have heard of him. He's called Denzel Washington. I'm not quite sure what he does, but apparently he looks tremendously like me, and I'm really not happy that he doesn't deter and tell people that he's not me. I believe he's won one or two awards, but like I say, you may have heard of him, but I'm not happy. I am Geoff Schumann. I am not this joker called Denzel Washington. It's a cross that I must bear, but I'm happy to accept it. It's not my fault that he and I look alike.
Yeah, that's the thing. When Geoff came on, I thought, oh, he came on with the name Denzel. I'm thinking, who's Denzel?
Well,
and he's sitting here right in front.
I know you could see it as well. You went straight away. Washington. Well,
what's the name there, Denzel?
I've no idea who he is, but if he's going to cash in on my fame, I absolutely am certainly entitled to cash in back and let him know it is not all right to grow your hair like Geoff Schumann. It is not okay for you to adopt my features, and it is not okay that you don't tell people that you're not an award-winning radio broadcaster and television personality. I mean, who the hell is he? Do you know who is this? Tell me what this guy does. I heard he's an actor. That's all I know about him. That's all I know. Denzel Washington. That's all I've heard.
If you were to Google Denzel Washington,
why should I waste time? He's Googled me. Why should I waste time?
He should Google you.
Why should I waste time? Okay, Dawn, lovely to speak to you. I wouldn't do this for many people. I don't have time for a lot of people, but you're someone who's been a stalwart and a staunch activist over many, many moons. And I appreciate that you're still doing what you're doing quite graciously and giving of self. So in your own time, when you're ready, Dawn, let's do this.
Let's do this. Let's go. Let's start from the beginning. So
okay.
I'm going to give you center stage so that you're the only one appearing on the screen.
Oh, dear. Is the screen wide enough?
Yes, dear. It is.
Oh, dear.
And there's so much we've got to talk about. So let's go. So first of all, Geoff, tell me about your start. Tell me about your school days. What were you like as a student? And how did you start in the career that you're in now?
Okay, very simply, I was raised within the Catholic education system. I was imbued with Catholicism, made my first Holy Confirmation, communion, all that sort of stuff. Took the 11 plus, got into Gunnersbury Grammar School for boys. Boys' school, didn't really enjoy it to be quite honest, but I was relatively and reasonably academic. Left with O levels. I went to Harrow College to do my A levels. After my A levels, I went to university. I trained as a school teacher, humanities. I had a love of comedy. I was a class comedian, always in trouble, but I got away with it at school because I was, as I say, reasonably intelligent. And then after that, Dawn, when I was teaching, I spent a lot of my time over at the drama lab, and a couple of times I found myself going to the schools after school drama club. And that was it. I always had a bug for wanting to entertain. Doing comedy, you stand in front of an audience. When you're a school teacher, Dawn, it's very similar. You stand in front of an audience. The difference is that the school kids can't heckle you. If not, they get detention. Comedy club, people have paid their money. They can be as crude, rude, and vulgar as they want to. So it was a smooth transition for me. I won a comedy competition. When I was 18, I won a national black writing competition, but I never saw it as a vocation. I started off as a poet. Quite enjoyed it. I still write poetry, and I write very quickly as I rhyme. As I moved from one place, I stood on the lawn. A friend I hadn't seen, my great friend Dawn, full of scenario and politics. I met her from the time when she ran Black Economics. I really find it easy with words. I write plays. I've always had that skill, that word skill. And so I embarked on a career of entertainment, and my big break came in 1997, 1996, New Year's Eve. I was performing at a hotel. I was doing a guest slot on BBC Radio London, and the owners of a radio station called Choice FM were at that hotel event. They saw me. I made them laugh, and someone said, "That guy there, he's on radio." They said, "Where?" I said, "On the BBC." And 3 months later, they gave me a call and said, would you want to come and do, come and work for Choice FM, which is a much smaller audience, but I knew it was where I wanted to be. It was black. It was African and Caribbean in focus. And I made it my mission to make sure I enjoyed it. My recruitment was to tell jokes and do silly things. And after about a year and a half, I just thought, I have an intellect, and black people, we need to do more than dance our way through life. So I started a chat show, and for the next 6 years, it was the biggest show on the radio station. So it was proof that black people, whether you liked me or not the issue. Whether you like the show or not the issue. Black people want to talk about intellectual and educational things that will enhance the community. And when we're often denied that by the mainstream, because they want us to talk about we smoke drugs, we kill each other, we have kids out of wedlock, blah, 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 and we like violent music. We're misogynistic. This is the way people like to portray us. I'd like to think I've gone against the grain. It's made me enemies. It may have cost me elements of my career, but I'm happy. I'm happy with the skin that I'm into. So that's how I really got into, I liked comedy. I won a comedy competition, and I kind of fell into it. But once I got into it, I gave up teaching. I was an education officer when Choice came calling, so I virtually gave up a full-time salary to do a once-a-week radio show, which I knew I could make grow. And I did, and then very soon after that, I was asked to join the breakfast show. And if you know anything about radio, Dawn, on any radio station, the two biggest shows by audience should be your breakfast show and your drive time show. They're the biggest two, because they're the most listeners, people in their cars coming home from work, and also people in the morning getting ready for work. My Saturday show consistently beat any show on the station. It was the biggest. So I sat on the breakfast show, which is the second biggest, and my own personal Saturday show was the biggest. So like for 7 years in London, I was a shark in a goldfish bowl. As you say, you remember me from there. And I was quite proud that parents would say to me, my kids aren't interested in politics, but when you come on and the way you do the debates, and I was really proud, chuffed. My ego was still able to get through the door. And I'll always treasure those memories. Of course, I was sacked. As soon as white people bought the station, that was the first thing they told me, you're out. We're letting you go. I thought, where am I going to? France, Germany, Spain? Am I there? It was like, I never got a chance to say goodbye to them. That will always rankle with me, painfully. But, time stands still for no man or woman. And people complained, we white people, why did they get rid of you, whatever. I said, well, look, hang on a minute. They bought the station for £24 million. You can't sell me your house and tell me how to decorate it. You can't sell me your car and tell me how to drive it. So when they bought the radio station, you can't tell them who they want to keep on and who they don't want to keep on. It's life, Dawn, and I learned a lot. And in that week, Dawn, my older brother, who was diabetic, he lost his leg. Same week I was sacked. And I was able to draw the comparison and say, my brother lost a leg and I lost a job. Really?
Yeah.
So a learning curve, Dawn. But I lived to tell the tale, Dawn, and I'm still here. And that was my journey. And I've subsequently helped a lot of people. Eddie Nesta got into radio. He was doing nothing when I picked him up. Wayne Rollins came to radio. I had my own little comedy company, Richard Blackwood. You go on his website, you'll see he pays homage to me. Nabil Obelish, the guy who got to the final of Britain's Got Talent. Yeah, Geoff Schumann, a big part of my journey. Dave Baptiste, who I'm so proud of, spoke to him even today, talking about other elements in his career. So I'm proud of my CV and people I've helped. Not anybody really has helped me, but you know what, Dawn? They don't owe me anything. If you've got a talent, Dawn, you've got an ability, and I'm in a position to do something about it or assist, I will do. Nobody owes me nothing. But I never closed the door on anybody, Dawn, and I'm really pleased and I'm glad. There's a great saying that pen is mightier than the sword. I write things, Dawn. I write. My mind's intuitive. I'm on a film script. I'm on my third draft. I'm cool, Dawn. Life's been good to me, Dawn. When I was making money, I didn't fritter it away. So I'm not begging any woman for a place to sleep at night. I'm not, I can read and write, and I own my own property. So I'm a very happy old menopausal man.
Well, oh dear. Oh, well done.
Okay.
Because I wanted to ask about your grades at school. Were you always in the top sets at school, and were you happy with that?
I was in all the top sets apart from maths. Even though my father was an economist and mathematician, I found maths very difficult. I got my English language O-level a year early. We were allowed to take it if you were in the top set. I got a C grade. So if I maybe took it when you were supposed to in the 50, I might have got a better grade. But I was always good at English, telling stories, good at history, geography, was weak at sciences because my maths was very poor. And I only got my maths because you needed it to become a teacher, English and maths. About third attempt. I just didn't enjoy doing formula. 25 men dig a road and blah, blah, blah. You got to sit and know the formula, Dawn. You can't guess. I'm prepared to guess, Dawn. You give me an idea for a storyline, Dawn, I'll give you 2 pages in the next 15 minutes. Some people, it might take them 15 days. Not me, Dawn. I can give a story tomorrow. You give me math. I knew my timetables from an early age, still do, but it was just a whole formula of pi equals x squared. So I could never do chemistry, Dawn. You must be joking. I had no interest in maths. Could never do biology. And then I bucked the system, Dawn, because when I was in the CSE math, CSE maths group, I had the greatest fun with kids who weren't interested in studying. I used to have a great laugh. So I was forced to go into the O-level stroke CSE maths group, or the weakest set of maths. I just found it a struggle, Dawn. I just didn't enjoy maths. You know, I didn't want to sit down with my father. I just wasn't interested, and I was left alone because all my other grades were good. It just wasn't for me. And so when I did my A-levels, politics, sociology, and history, I loved government and politics. I was taught by a woman called Jasmine Luha, and this woman changed my life. You know, I remember one day she said to me after class at A-level at Harrow College, she said to me, "You got a very big mouth. Who are you talking to?" Like, she said, "And you have great ability. If you could just apply yourself, you could be a parliamentarian." It's nothing about 3 weeks of teaching me. I just thought, who are you to talk to me? But she took that time out with me, and I so got involved in like the class. It then led me into a world of left-wing politics, which gave me a different view of society. I read a book by an eminent man who's now dead called Walter Rodney, and it was called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. So I started to read literature that changed me. I read a book by a man called Eric Williams called Capitalism and Slavery. The guy who wrote that eventually went on to become the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Eric Williams. And when he got into power, he banned his own book. He told them, look, that was then. When I wrote that, that was then. This is different now. But it's a masterpiece of how Europe underdeveloped where I came from. And I studied in London. And up the road from where my institution was a school called SOAS, the School of African and Oriental Studies, like a sisters. So I used to go there a lot. And then I would hear speakers say things, Dawn, that are like, what? Marcus Garvey did what? I wasn't taught these things, Dawn. I didn't have no knowledge of myself, Dawn. You know, Dawn, I am part of that wretched generation who would laugh at anybody of my age group who had an African name or who was dark-skinned. Totally miseducated, Dawn. You know, thought Tarzan was great. I mean, a white guy and all these black people, we can't speak to the animals. He's worse than Dr. Dolittle. So, you know, Dawn, and when you come into knowledge of self, Dawn, it becomes very painful. And I went on to do another qualification, a master's in community and youth work and sociology. And that enabled me, Dawn, by that time, to really read, Dawn. I did it 2 years part-time. Ealing Council paid for it, because I wrote their sociology submission for their youth and community workers course. They paid for me to go to Brunel. And the things that I was reading in 1987, 1983, 84, 85, by 86, Dawn, I was a completely different person. By 87, Dawn, I was a completely, by 1990, Dawn, I was unrecognizable from the guy who had white female breasts on my school locker, because everybody else did. I didn't know any better, Dawn. That's, you know, you gravitate to what you see around you. A child, when it comes into this world, Dawn, this is my sociology now, it doesn't speak any language until it's socialized in its primary years, its formative years, by the people around it.
Yes, yes.
And so my father was very clear, and I grew up on Radio 4. I never grew up on listening to Capital Radio or pop stations. So in the morning, getting ready in the bathroom, I heard Radio 4, Brian Redhead, and Medium Wave, and the shipping forecast. and by that time, Dawn, as I then got older, I've lived on speech radio ever since. Even though I made my name on a music station, I always wanted to talk politics. I studied it. And been able to blend the two skillfully without putting people to sleep, encouraging people to read. Because those that read are those that lead, as Jesse Jackson said. And my catchphrase, Dawn, was, we can't and we shall not and we should not dance our way through life. Okay,
another question. You said you were a teacher. How long were you in the classroom for?
Oh, too many years. When did I start? Started teaching at 22, qualified 22. About six years.
Okay. Was it secondary or?
Secondary. I taught up to A level.
Which school? Which area?
Acton High School. Did some teaching
Oh.
practice at a place called Copeland in Brent.
Mm.
And then got the job at Acton College, and then got time off on the timetable to run the youth club at Acton College.
Oh.
I was split between, I had 12 hours remission to work. The two institutions were like 100 yards away. But only mainly because, Dawn, that, you know, I was black. They had a problem with black boys in the school. And I was seen as one that he's an older version of them. And I love that role, Dawn. Yeah, sometimes I'd be out in the playground playing football with the kids. I can see the white teachers looking, thinking, ooh, I was viewed with great suspicion, Dawn. But I love that role, Dawn. You know, and my father died last year, but my mother still got a picture of the old class that I used to teach, 32. And of those 14 of that class were black boys, and 10 of them went to prison. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy in Acton in West London. It was a tough time. But, you know, Dawn, I really liked that role because I had knowledge, Dawn. I had these young people eating at the palm of their hands. One of them, Dawn, his name is Justin Mohammed, has set up a group, a Back to Africa group. He's currently there now doing work. And he credits saying that, you know, he'd never encountered anybody like me.
Oh.
And that enabled him to read. You can't force people, Dawn. If you force people and tell people how to behave, Dawn, you lose them. But if you explore things with people, Dawn, and you say, there's this book, it's called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Have a read. Here's this book called The Browder File by Anthony Browder. Nice, simple, small booklet. Have a read. And once people start reading, because you've got them in the educational sense, there started to be some dissenting voices at Acton High School. I mean, serious stuff. People started to ask questions of the white teachers and stuff. I'm glad I got out when I got out. But I was saddened because I was leaving behind our children in what we call the killing fields, being given an education that really makes them subnormal. Dawn, there's a book called Partial Surrender by a guy called Lincoln Williams. Wonderful book, Partial Surrender. And in it, in his foreword, it is very similar to what happened to me. I was usually when you're teaching, Dawn, in your first teaching year, it's very rare you get given a class form. Very rare you get given your own tutor. Very rare, especially at secondary. So after the second term, I was given a form group, 7C, I think it was, where all these black kids were mainly. And I know, Dawn, the reason why they gave it to me was kind of basically, some of these kids are just unmanageable. If we give it to Mr. Schumann, if he can't make them work, then it proves we're not racist and it's not us. Dawn, when the bell used to go during my humanities session, there would still be about 8 or 9 of them who haven't packed up to go to lunch, but happy to sit there and talk. Then I formed a luncheon club where I go and get a lunch and come back and we'll have a laugh. I prefer being around students than being in the staff room. I loved it. Dawn, I loved being a teacher, and I loved it when I was a youth worker, because then you set the curriculum. You can challenge the isms and the negativity of how our young people perceive themselves. No vulgar music was allowed on in the youth club that I ran. And when I became an education officer, responsible for a whole patch of youth workers, during supervision, they stopped playing the vulgar, disrespectful music to our mothers, to our women, but then they didn't know any better, Dawn. That was what, you know, youth clubs were a containment space for kids to come in and just play pool. No development work, no group work, no sitting around talking to them. But Dawn, a person can only do that if they have the capacity and the inclination, and their education enables them to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's my journey, Dawn. I'd like to think I've had an effect and an affection and an infection on the minds of some people. And I honestly, Dawn, I used to be quite embarrassed. I embrace it now. But up to about 2 years ago, I'll be embarrassed if anybody said, "Respect, Geoff. Thanks very much for doing it." A friend of mine said, "Embrace it, Geoff, and do more of it. Embrace it, Geoff." I'm thinking, well, no, because no one likes to show off. I hate show-offs. I don't enjoy them. I avoid them. I don't want to be involved in that.
But you sound like the ideal teacher. I mean, I remember, you know, 1 or 2 teachers that stood out for me at school. And okay. This day, I remember them and how they impacted my life. It could be a conversation that they had with you. It could have been even the way there was a Black American teacher who was at my school when I was growing up in North London. The only Black teacher in the school, in fact. But he had a way with him. He would walk down the corridor and his head would be up in the air. You know, he wasn't like this, walking with his head down. His head would be up in the air, and that gained respect from everybody, because here was somebody who was not cowering because he was black. He was somebody who was bright, intelligent. In fact, he was a math teacher, and hence I loved maths. But I can't blame him for that. But I went on to study maths later on.
Yeah,
but I remember him because he gave fantastic ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you, the same way that you were affected and I was affected by this woman called Jazz and a guy called John Cudmore. In fact, my history teacher for A-level was the leader of my local council many years later. A guy called John Cudmore. He's retired now. I always give him credit. He's a white teacher.
I don't know if you can hear me, Geoff, but there's pause. Hello?
Hi, Dawn. You look like you froze for a bit.
Yeah, you froze too. Yeah.
No, I was still talking like Dawn. Blah, blah, blah.
So you have to repeat that
because I said, Dawn. Okay, here's a pickup. It's nice, Dawn, when people take note of you. Like I say, I mean, the guy who taught me A-level history many years later became the leader of the local council. He was a Labour councillor, John Cudmore. I always give him credit. Most of the people who taught me, Dawn, were white people. That was education. And when I became a teacher, Dawn, some of the people who had the most disparaging things to say about black youth were other black teachers, almost like, you know, they're letting the side down. I've made, which gave me the understanding of society and the structure and where people stand within a capitalist, a socialist, a Marxist, you know, a totalitarian, fascistical society. And so therefore, my remit when I became a teacher, Dawn, really, I targeted black kids with a passion. At high school, we even got the school with the minibus to pay for it to take black kids away for a weekend in year 11. I was teaching very young, Dawn, so my A-level group, Dawn, were only about 5 years younger than me.
Yes, yeah.
So I wouldn't change it for the world, Dawn. You know, as I say, Dawn, maybe if I did different subjects, Dawn, and if I hadn't furthered my education, maybe I would be behaving in a different manner. But I did go on to do what I've done, Dawn. As I say, I have no regrets, Dawn. I'd go back into a classroom tomorrow if I could control the curriculum. I've got no interest in going back to teaching to teach Eurocentric nonsense.
Yes, I hear you. And the classroom is changed quite a bit today.
Probation service, definitely.
Yeah.
The thing is, Dawn, when you give people a knowledge of themselves, they'll stop disrespecting themselves. You know, it doesn't matter what you call me, Dawn. It matters what I answer to. When you give people a grounding, Dawn, a friend of mine, they be a head teacher. There was madness 5 years ago in his school between children of the descendants of people on the Horn of Africa, East Africa, Eritrean, Ethiopian, and kids of Caribbean. Though I hate the term Caribbean because Carib is the Spanish word for savage, but of kids, there were black civil war. 4 sessions with myself, Dawn, giving them knowledge of self, Dawn, and then they were playing football together, explaining to the kids of Caribbean descendants, we all come from Africa. We were kidnapped. Our names were changed. This is why we are the way we are, whatever. It's like, no one never spoken to them like that.
Wow.
So education, Dawn, you know, knowledge is power.
Yes, it is.
He or she who can provide that spark of informative, exciting narrative, you can take anybody with you, Dawn. Choice FM told me, look, you know, Rihanna Scipio was here. Black people don't want speech. That's why you're here to keep it lighthearted, tell jokes in the morning. We had Daddy Ernie and George K. They were the most popular. We want you to do the same thing. Dawn, I did it for a year. I couldn't do it anymore, Dawn. When I did it the way I wanted to do it, Dawn, the record-breaking figures spoke for themselves.
Well done, well done. So tell me, what has happened since you left Choice FM?
You had to make it painful, didn't you?
Sorry. In fact, first of all, what year did you leave Choice FM?
The year I was sacked by Choice FM was 2004. Capital Radio bought the station. They called me into. I was the first person they wanted to see. The guy I used to do the breakfast show with, Martin J. He had been testing with about 4 or 5 different presenters for months. They always knew they were going to sack me, which was fine. And rightly so, he looked after himself, so he didn't need to tell me. So 2004, they sacked me. And 3 days later, the BBC came for me, asking would I turned them down twice before. Eddie Nestor ended up at BBC London because I knew a guy there called Wim Baptiste. I had no interest in. I love Choice. When I was around, I got Eddie to come in and deputise for me because I thought he was more than an actor. And it went from there. Once it was clear to BBC London, I was never going to leave. Then he was approached and they created a thing for him on I think it was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When we used to look at the thing called Radar, which are the listenerships for all radio stations in London, BBC London never used to have used to have a red dot against it. No one listening. Choice, I had 26,000, 34,000. You know, so what am I leaving? Even if it's a smaller radio station in my community, I'm a superstar. And that's what I want to. I don't care if I walk past 5 white people and they're like, who's that? But in my community, I couldn't walk through in parts of South London without being stopped. One woman nearly killed herself one morning after I was walking through Balham and said, I had her daughter with her and said, you know, my son's currently, he was in a young offenders institution. You know, you're keeping his spirits going. Your show is so important and blah, blah, blah. And I was standing at the time next to who at the time, and still is for me, one of the most prominent DJs from South London, a guy called Mystery. She didn't even know who he was. Didn't say a word to him. I went, oh, this is PT Mystery. She said, okay. Okay, how are you? But, you know, I was on television at the time, although I did enjoy the program, but Dawn, I loved being a star in my own community. So I did 3 years at the BBC, 4 years, and it was always on a Sunday night, Dawn, terrible time. They wouldn't let me talk politics until we came to an impasse and an agreement in 2007. I then joined another radio station called Life FM, for which my breakfast show was nominated and we won a Sony Award for radio stations under $500,000. My show was the majority of the output. We won that award. And then my brother died in 2009, and so I took a hiatus. I took a sabbatical from radio. Social media then grew in profile, and I carried on writing, Dawn. I wrote a black pantomime called Josie and the Multicolour Weave. I started doing workshops with young people, which I really enjoyed, Dawn, because I'm in control of the narrative about positive imagery. So I'm still around, Dawn. I get asked a lot of the time, Dawn, to do things like this, and especially during lockdown. I'm not interested, Dawn. I don't hear talk about hip hop and vulgar music, and I know DMX died and sad for his family, but the imagery of how black men, magnificent, it's painful for me, Dawn. So I turn a lot of stuff down, Dawn. I really do. And I hope I'll let my writing after lockdown speak for itself. But, you know, Dawn, Patrick Berry, the former founder of Choice FM, said, you know, Geoff, you've got to keep yourself visible, because when you're at home, no one knows where you are. But my counter argument to that is that as long as when people don't know where you are, you're doing things that will hopefully put you back in the cradle and back out there. Because, you know, Dawn, I don't want to sit on game shows and panels, Dawn, as a big laughing bear. So there are 1 or 2 black performers I look on TV, Dawn, and I won't name them. But, you know, one in particular, and I look at her, Dawn, and I think to myself, wow, other than that loud laugh, what is your talent? You just laugh loud. Yes, boss. But you have to look at the people who put these people in front of us to represent us. So these images are no accident. These are the people who never say anything political. 99.9% of them, I know we'll talk about it later, they will talk heavily, Dawn, about white people and white racism, systemic racism. When they go home and open the front door, the same people you've been talking about are the people that you live with.
Okay, so let's talk about white partners now, since you've touched on it. You're saying...
Dawn, let me be very clear. I have no problem. I'm something for me now. It's not something that I do or could ever do. I've got no problem with people falling in love from different cultures. How dare anybody say no? Just like we might talk about the statistics about the overrepresentation of black men in the penal system compared to the demography of the numbers of us in society. Most of the spokespersons, footballers, sports persons, presenters, wherever, are not in black relationships. And 95% of those who are very outspoken about race and racism, and which rightly so, because it's wrong, don't have black partners. What is that psychology, Dawn? You see, the people I don't like, Dawn, and there are some black men who I know, who are professional, who are famous, who moan about white people all the time. Oh, my crew didn't go here, effing racist, those blah, blah, blah. But yet your last 4 partners have all been white women. What is that about? What is that psychology, that psychosis within yourself that tells you that the vagina you came out of, you can't date? You don't find attractive. And that's when they get uncomfortable, Dawn, because it makes them uncomfortable. I can remember there was this thing done last year about the DJ Tim Westwood and underage black women. And he answered the people. He's not a friend of mine, but he said, I've never had sex with anybody under 18, blah, 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 blah. Let them prove it and whatever. One of these black DJs who I know from when I was younger, who just loves white women, he was on it hard. So I wrote on Facebook, the thing about Tim Westwood that, and I have in common is we both like black women, unlike some of these critics who are, but the guy unfriended me. Why? Dawn, truth hurts. You know, Dawn, you could accuse me, Dawn, if I was on a one-to-one with you of being sexist and making an inappropriate advance. I'm a big supporter of the Me Too movement. But Dawn, unless I've got witnesses, how am I to defend myself against that allegation? I don't take it lightly, Dawn, and accuse white people of anything. I understand the system, Dawn, so you don't see me wasting my time, Dawn, complaining about white people, whatever. I complain about the imagery that's thrust in our face. That's what I complain about, Dawn. And if I'm going to make a success of it, Dawn, I have to use my writing skills to offer an alternative, a bit like clean glass, dirty glass. Is the glass half full or the glass half empty? Otherwise, you get accused of being jealous. You're only saying it because you're the forgotten man, or you wish it was you. It's not about that, Dawn. Bernie Grant was the most outspoken person in 1987 when the gang of four of the MPs who got elected. Paul Boateng's wife, Janet, black. Diane Abbott wasn't married, went on to have a child for someone black. And then he told a story on her. Keith Faz, Asian wife, wouldn't expect any different because Asian. But Bernie Grant, the most outspoken, first wife, white, girlfriend, white, Sharon Grant, white. But so outspoken about white people, and the police got bloody good hiding, but never, not that we know of anybody black.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
What do you think, Dawn? You got me here. What do you think?
I think that people are entitled to date and marry who they want to, wherever they're from.
Which is what I said.
But I suppose we do find it puzzling when people are talking a lot about race and politics, but they don't seem to reflect that in their own family. So I suppose I think the last black woman Lenny Henry kissed was his mum. I mean, you know, before doing French and this next one, after my story, always with somebody white. And the new I think it's also about the circles that some of them. It's also about the circles that some of them are mixing with, isn't it? Well, I mixed in those circles, Dawn. I'm sorry, Dawn. It's a psychology of what's inside your mind, Dawn. Dawn, I've had ample opportunities to date white women. Ample, Dawn. Don't get me. Dawn, when I was younger, Dawn, I grew up in a place called Acton in West London, where for every one white girl, there was 100 black guys. I had that psychosis, Dawn, up until about 14, 15. Thought white women were well, I'm not saying against them anything now, but I thought white women were the only women around. I didn't, because of the environment I was in. I got to 16, Dawn, got out of the school I went to college, Dawn, and my whole psychology changed, Dawn. If I didn't further my education, Dawn, I absolutely tell you, I have two boys, I guarantee they would have been mixed race. Because of the psychosis of what was in my head at the time, Dawn. Dawn, I grew up at a time, Dawn, when Charlie's Angels was on television. Farrah Fawcett Majors, Jacqueline Smith, and whatever, all white women. There was no one black. Apart from Moira Stewart, who read the news, what black women did I get to see on television that I could say the Williams sisters hadn't arrived? Aretha Franklin and them were all soul singers in America. There was no black women in England, apart from Moira Stewart, that I could look at and say, yeah. There was a black actress in a program called Muriel O'Dunton in a TV comedy called Mixed Blessings, which was a black woman with a white guy. There were no black women I could say, that's sexy. I had to wait for Michael Jackson's Thriller video for Ola Ray, the actress, say, well, I love some of that and whatever. There were no. So my whole head, Dawn, and all the role models, Dawn, were black guys with white women. I had an argument, Dawn, once. Yeah, it's interesting. Very serious argument, Dawn, with a guy who went on to be the drummer for a band called the Young Disciples. A guy called Ian, a friend of mine. I'm sure you won't mind me sharing it. We stood outside on the streets of West London for nearly 2 hours, in which he comically cursed me because I said I didn't fancy white women. He couldn't understand that. And you say, like no white girls at all. Dawn, I wasn't saying anything against him. I just said that I found black women attractive. Dawn, he wasn't having a bar of it. Wow. He wasn't having a, and I started hanging around with a guy who's my best friend to this day called Simon, who liked black women. And that was it for me. I didn't have to justify that I thought black women were attractive. Beautiful. It's an interesting sociological study, that, because I remember one of my daughters saying to me, oh, there's this club in Shoreditch. She only told me this last year. It's a club in a club in Shoreditch, apparently, that a lot of white women go to specifically to meet black men. Yeah, sure. So, You know, for white women, black men are attractive. You know, they're virulent. They want to have mixed race kids. It's
Well,
almost like
and Dawn,
it's
so
also.
what, Dawn? That's up to them, and nothing wrong with that, Dawn. Dawn, if I met a white guy who said to me, I only go out with white women, and whatever, I'm not calling him a racist, Dawn. That's his choice. That's his preference. I have some wonderful female friends, Dawn, especially my family in Liverpool, who are virtually always all mixed race. My nephews and nieces, some of them are mixed race. Dawn, I've got no issue, Dawn. But if you're asking me about me, Dawn, what I like, and it's just my personal preference, Dawn, I like black women. That's not me saying, Dawn, there's anything wrong with white women or Asian women or women of any culture. I'm speaking about me and Geoff Schumann. So if I go somewhere, Dawn, and there are 1,000 women in the room and one happens to be black, for whatever reason, Dawn, my antenna turns straight to the black woman. That's me.
I suppose in a sense we have to accept that the world is becoming a melting pot of different
diversity. That's the new one, diversity and BAME.
Yeah, it's becoming quite a melting pot, but we still puzzle over it when it seems that the majority of Black Caribbean men, as was reported in the last census, by the way, are going for white women, which is leaving our Black women single. That's really what seems to be happening.
I'm not being apologetic. Our men throughout history and the way the black family was divided and sliced apart by slavery, our men do not have that respect for our women. You know, films and whole industries called pimps, where black men would put black women on the streets to sleep with white men for money. I mean, there's a great thing, Malcolm X, who was a hustler, who went on to become one of the greatest, this is my personal opinion, one of the greatest advocates for social change in the black community. In the bed that I sleep in, Dawn, above me is a picture of Malcolm X, such as my love for the man who went to prison and turned his life around. But that's the reality, Dawn, that until we learn to have respect for the mothers of our children, even in the terminology that we use, baby mother, what's that, Dawn? Sounds like a machine that drops out kids. If we can't say the mother of my child or call people by their first name, we will denigrate. So it's not just that our men go off with white women. Our men do some. Let me be very clear. Some of our men, because of their social conditioning, have a low opinion and expectation of their own women. Therein lies, Dawn, there are some men who will beat women senseless and fight with them, but you say something about their mother and they'll kill you. Can't they make the correlation between the mother and the woman are both the same thing? Dawn, I speak this way because I've had the benefit of furthering my education and the benefit of furthering my own analysis. I don't look down on any man who's disrespectful at all. I don't enjoy him or like that behavior, Dawn, but Dawn, I have 2 children with the same woman I was with for 15 years. I haven't got children all over the place, Dawn. A choice made by myself. Dawn, I don't look at a woman who's got 4 kids for 4 different men and say she was slack or errant. You do what you do. In my experience in my life, Dawn, I've never met a woman who openly had a child and didn't love the man at that time. You know, men with her, she tried to trap me and blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking about my personal experience, Dawn. I'm not saying these people don't exist, but I've not met women, Dawn, who are no longer with the partners anymore, Dawn. 99.9%, including my male friends, have been responsible for the breakup of their relationships, cheating, doing this and doing that, whatever. That's male behavior. White men do the same thing again. But I don't think that our men leave our women in droves because of white women. We leave our women in droves because of the psychological non-history of black successful relationships. When our parents came here and struggled, my mum raised 6 of us. And my dad was around. And most of them in the households in West London I grew up in came from 2-parent black families. Lots of the boys went on to check white girls.
Yeah, I mean, it is an issue in terms of our economic status.
Yes,
let's face it, 2-parent families will do better on the economic ladder for their families than a single parent. You know, that is a fact. So how can we solve this problem and end this kind of cycle where, you know, 75-80% of our families are without dads? Can we actually change this cycle?
Not with the current educational system that we have, Dawn. We can only change it, Dawn, with the process of education, which means attacking the curriculum to let the next generation, from the age of 4, to let them know about their rich traditions and histories, our rich ceremonies of marriage, Timbuktu, the civilizations long before Europe. You know, my history didn't begin in the chains of slavery, Dawn. We're not black because we're cursed. We're black because we're first. We were the first ones here. Columbus sailed with a chocolate crew. People make this mistake. Christopher Columbus was not a Spaniard. He was an Italian who sailed in Spanish ships. And when he arrived in the so-called New World, you can't discover people who've already been there before you, Dawn. You conquer them because empires are built on war and grabbing and taking because you need things for your society. You can't break the cycle, Dawn, with the current educational system. So I'm afraid to say, as much as there are some great groups around, Dawn, there are lots of black groups, Dawn, on social media. Some are set up by white people to keep an eye on us. Some are set up by black people who are paid by white people to keep an eye on us. You can't break the cycle of a man who's in his 50s, Dawn, who's got 8 or 9 kids. What do you want to hear from you or I, Dawn, about, listen, we've got to break the cycle. He's got 4 kids born in the same year. If DMX, who's just died, had 15 kids. Some were the same age. I want to have those discussions, Dawn. But to break the cycle, Dawn, in answer to your question, the black family needs to be taught in black environments. It has to be taught that way, Dawn. The music that encourages, Dawn, bitch, hoe, like Francis Cress Wilson. If you can teach people to demean themselves, to gladly boast about, I'm a bitch, I'm a hoe, I'm a gangster. If you can train them to sing their own demisement and demeanment, then you can train them to do almost anything, Dawn. And that means you can program them to kill themselves and they won't even know what happened. So
wow.
I hope that answers it, Dawn. Unless we're in a position, Dawn, where we can get in the curriculum and affect it and talk about our family and tell our own stories, Dawn, we've got no chance. That great African proverb, until the lions have their own historians, tales of hunting will always glorify the hunter.
Well, I know there are various people coming up with curriculums that they feel are more diverse, coming up with Black History curriculum. I know Wales in particular is working on that, which is fantastic. The first area of United Kingdom to look into getting Black history as part of the curriculum in the schools, which is fantastic. But I think that more organizations need to be looking at that. Because
it's not enough, Dawn, take it from me as a classroom manager and teacher. It's not enough. It is great to explain that Queen Victoria had black ancestors. It's great to talk about African royalty and stuff. What does that? Okay, so therefore you imbue a sense of, oh, I do have a history. But Dawn, we're talking about, your question was about the black family. How can we change that status of single parent home? Well, Dawn, the radio, the mass media, why do you think Rupert Murdoch spends so much in controlling the Times, the Sun newspaper, TalkSport? Why do you think that prime ministers and that whole Levinson inquiry, and the power of the media, Dawn, is because he or she who controls the narrative controls how people think,
Well, I very much believe in, if we see there's a problem, we make the solution. So I think, Geoff, that we need to sit down and make that solution happen. And you need to be a part of that.
Dawn, nobody's going to allow you. I've got this beautiful meme, Dawn, and I will send it to you afterwards. It's a beautiful meme of Charlie Brown, the cartoon character, and the dog Snoopy's behind him, and Charlie Brown looking over his shoulder, and the dog says to him, nobody is going to allow you the education that you can use to overthrow them. Look at Hong Kong and the current descent from Chinese are rapidly strong because they're culturally specific. They seek economics to marry their own. When they invade another country with their building of roads and bridges, what do? They export their population to those higher local people. You look at Russia in Eastern Europe. Look at the Jews. Every successful cultural group, Dawn, Asians, marry their own, Dawn. They set up communities because their history, Dawn, wasn't disrupted in the way ours was. If I was Chinese, Dawn, and told you my name was Dawn Grant or Geoff Schumann with a Chinese face, you'd look and say, no way, that ain't your real name. Can't be. Or if I was Asian with a turban and said my name was David O'Leary, you'd be, listen, Prakash, what's your real name? But I sit with you as Geoff Schumann, you're Dawn Grant. We don't question, Dawn. We don't question, Dawn. We accept what's been imposed upon us, Dawn. And so this whole thing of Dawn about economics, how do you increase popularity, Dawn? Dawn, when you have no money and you make demands, that is just shouting in a loud voice. It means nothing, Dawn.
I hear
That's
you.
why
I hear you.
you deal with economics, Dawn, because you know the importance of it, Dawn.
Mm.
How much time, Dawn, have you tried in your professional career to get people to invest and spend in their own, to be met with skepticism? Well, why should I support that?
Mm.
Jimmy Ashway's great joke. If there was a black bag, would you invest your money in it? Everyone starts laughing. Black people in particular. What?
Oh no!
Oh,
Oh
that's the perception, Dawn, that we have of mistrust of our own. That's why we have Black Pound Day, Black Recycling Day, telling my brethren that, no, man, too expensive, man. It's 30% cheaper on Amazon. Well, how are we supposed to grow our businesses, Dawn?
yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
You know, Dawn, KFC, Colonel Sanders. At that period of time, Dawn, it was the servants who did the cooking. Right. How did Colonel Sanders come up with that recipe? I mean, really, Dawn? You know, we've seen white people on television. It's salt and pepper. They don't spice no more than 2 spices. So I don't know about 11 secret spices. Come on, Dawn, behave yourself.
Oh, so you saying you think it was a black recipe?
I'm telling you,
That
Dawn.
is
I'm not
now being
saying.
used by KFC.
Dawn, you watch in them cookery programs. Even now, the most important ingredients for seasoning for them is a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper.
Oh wow!
Every major, Dawn, every major high street has generally got a Chinese on it, restaurant, Asian restaurant. If you're lucky, you might see us. What is an English restaurant, Dawn? A calf.
And fish and chips.
That's a calf. Dawn. Fish and chips, peas, roast beef, no seasoning, Dawn. And in America, Dawn, no seasoning apart from sugar. In sauces, Heinz. But a secret chicken recipe, it was known, Dawn, that the slaves made the chicken. Sorry, Africans who were turned into slaves, Dawn. We know that for a fact, did all the cooking, Dawn. The reason why we eat oxtail, Dawn, is tough meat and things like that, and intestines, chitlins, because those are the parts of the meat that were being thrown away from massa. So we were inventive, Dawn, and we added some onions and this and that, and we cooked them, Dawn. Grits, that's why we eat the food we eat, Dawn. Why people don't know about oxtail? They ate the soft parts of the meat. We seasoned, Dawn. Dawn, look in history, Dawn. Who were the cooks? Who were the servants? When they invaded America, off of the Mayflower, fleeing persecution, it was the Indians who taught them how to cook and grow corn and put dock leaves on. They didn't have that advancements of science, Dawn. Lectures at SOAS blew my mind. I'm like, you are making this up. No way. That can't be true. Why don't I know this? Because no one's going to put that education in school, Dawn, to enable you to have analysis. To say, like, it's painful for me, Dawn, to sit here and tell you I thought black women were ugly till I was 15, 16. I use the term, Dawn. I thought they were ugly, Dawn. And so did most of my contemporaries. Yes, Dawn. If I grew up around you, Dawn, you must be joking. You must be the one who be talking to my friends. You got a white girl as your friend now. What? That's the crown jewels. Not my fault, Dawn. That's how I was conditioned, Dawn.
Geoff, I see that you are sitting in front of a whole load of awards.
Yeah, I believe it or not.
Tell us about that.
No wonder Denzel Washington wants to associate himself with me. In my younger days, I was a very good footballer. I played county badminton. I was a very good tennis player. I played for my local district at table tennis. I was a good swimmer. I was a very good sportsman. My older brother, who's no longer with us, was sensational. And it ran in the family. My father was a good sportsman of his generation, but I was. My 2 boys are good as well, but I was very good at different, especially hand-eye coordination. My brother was a county squash player and a coach. I was very good at badminton and I was very good at table tennis. So anything with a racket, I'm pretty good with even to this day.
Oh wow! Do you still play?
Yeah, I do. When I find time. I mean, I had to lose a lot of weight. I became very comfortable in my skin of eating anything that moved. Many moons ago, and about 8 years ago, I decided that I needed to diet or kill myself, get rich while die trying. And so I've managed to get rid of the double chin, and I haven't got a folded flag on the back of my head anymore. And I look different, people tell me. But yeah, I love sports. I really, really do. I really, really enjoy sports. But I'm old, Dawn, so the body tells me that I'm 22, 23, 24, 25 still, when in reality I'm way older than that. So I have to try and stay within my limits. And unfortunately, playing things called veterans leagues. Absolutely, it kind of signifies how old I am. But yeah, I try. Most of my friends are in their 60s, Dawn, and they look like they're in their 30s and 40s. They've really kept themselves, Dawn. I mean, really.
Black doesn't crack.
But, well, in my case, it has, Dawn, because me and my mates are all sort of similar age, and I'm the one who looks older than all of them, and some of them are older than me. But yeah, we try, Dawn. We have to. Only one life to live, and
yes. So in your heyday, The Real McCoy was on TV. Were you a part of that at all?
Yeah, I wrote on it. I worked extensively with a guy called Felix Dexter. I appeared in it as well, doing some stand-up comedy. When my friend Felix joined in series 3, I was within the night. A man called Terry Jervis went to see him at a place called the Comedy Store. And he put Felix in The Real McCoy, and he was looking for someone to do some characters. And Felix didn't have any characters. He was just a very good stand-up comic. And he'd seen me on the university circuit doing characters. So he invited me along, and he helped me in many respects to get into the circuit. And Felix was responsible for getting me into The Real McCoy.
Oh, wow.
I work with, he's really funny. Come and take a look at him. And he told a guy called Bill Wilson, who's sadly deceased. And yeah, and hence my love affair, my friendship. I don't know if you know, but Felix Dexter, who passed away, I'm the chair of his charity, which is a big plug, www.felixdexter.org. We do stuff in both here and in St. Kitts, the place of his birth. We're trying to get a comedy drama training school in St. Kitts. We've had about 4 or 5 concerts over here in his name. There's a writer's bursary, my idea, which the BBC are executing, in which Black and Asian minority ethnic writers, BAME, a term I detest, but anyway, they're being encouraged, and it's a bursary that's paid for across writing platforms of the BBC. So we're keeping and honouring the legacy of a great man, because Felix was a lovely man. He really was, Dawn. So yeah, all of these things are part of the trophies and memories that I keep. But yeah.
And you're currently writing a script for film.
Yeah, about life story. Yeah, absolutely. And being given great help by a woman called Renilla, speaking to people who knew him. Again, it's part fact, part fiction. And Felix was a very private man, Dawn. I didn't realise, of all the people I know on the comedy circuit, only about 2 of us ever went to his home. I didn't know that at the time. And I stayed overnight. I didn't even know that. He'd been to me a few times. We used to gig a lot. And as I say, he went to Edinburgh. He wrote a show called What a Bargain. And then the flat he had, I came down to see him. And we just became really good friends from there. It was, he wrote on his pilots, 2 pilot episodes. I remember being at home. I was living in Perivale at the time and getting a phone call from a woman saying, "Oh, Felix has asked that would you come on and be in one of the sketches and be an extra?" I was really honoured. And then when he was at the Real McCoy, I would go in on a rehearsal day. It used to be at a place in rehearsal rooms, I remember, were in North Acton at the time. And then we'd go to Shepherd's Bush, and it was very good to me. But I'd like to think I was good to him because I helped him with some writing. Just a truly wonderful man. Just a truly wonderful man. And as I'm sitting to you, talking to you now, I'm looking across my sitting room. I've got a picture of him that sits with a false little container supposed to contain some of his ashes. And I like to think to myself, my friend, you're not forgotten. And for as long as I'm around, and other people, we're planning an exhibition later this year, Dawn, to commemorate him at the St. Kitts Embassy. We've had open evenings, and we'll invite you along. But he was a truly remarkable man, Dawn. Unlike me, he's never had a bad word to say about anybody, and he's liked, and was truly liked. And yeah, I just loved him. I really did. I see it as an honour to be the chair of his foundation. I loved him. I really did.
Thank you so much, Geoff. And thank you for speaking to us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for, you turn others down, but you said yes to us. And I'm so
absolutely, Dawn. It's all about economics. I hope my check's in the post. So
We will talk. We will talk again, definitely,
Yeah,
because people want to
definitely.
hear much more from you, okay?
Thank you very much, Dawn. Thanks to everybody. And please make sure, if you don't know what Dawn does, and you probably do, you're on our platform, been doing wonderful things around the importance of economics in the community and why it's important that you spend and learn from other people, why it's important that you recycle. Very much, you're a tribune amongst many. Well done for what you keep on doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geoff. All right.
Ciao. Take care. Bye-bye.
Later. Bye.
Fashion and furnishings.
VU Designs. Fashion and furnishings.
Fashion and furnishings.
VU Designs.